No, 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 no. You see, it's still on the third channel. Please, just take off the third channel.
Gather round and watch. Watch the magic pumpkin. Watch.
I don't care what you have to do. Please take off the third channel for God's sakes. Take off the third channel. Take it off the third channel for God's sakes. Please stop it. Turn it off. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Sununununu. This just in, it appears that one can simply defeat the evil Silver Shamrock commercial by simply switching off their television set.
Wait, really?
Why, yes, loyal viewer. Apparently there's been a recent study that shows that current TV viewers are switching over to streaming apps, thus making the airing of the demented commercial pointless as TV viewership dwindles, leaving many local stations in the dark. Including this one. You out there! Whatever you do, don't turn the TV off! I'll do whatever you want! I'll eat bugs! I'll catapult myself over some cow dung! I'll prostitute myself! I'll strip for food! Keep us on! Please! Keep us on!
Well, that was anticlimactic. God, I'm bored. Nothing can make me feel better or excited at all.
Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Oh! I mean, that's pretty cool and all, but I'm kinda not in an MST3K mood right now. And that's surprising coming from me. So, I guess there's nothing else for me to get excited about.
You want your mask? Come and get it!
Okay. You got my attention. If you've been around here for a while, or if you're new, well, first off, welcome. It's good to have you here. And secondly, outside of Mystery Science Theater 3000, I'm also a huge fan of the Halloween franchise. And now seeing that there's a new movie coming out this month, I think it's an appropriate time to go ahead and take a look at another movie from the series. Now, of course, some of you already know that I've covered films in the Halloween series before that may have considered to be the worst. In fact, way back in the very first Craptober in 2014, I took a look at Halloween Resurrection, a very unnecessary sequel that would have ended with H2O, but of course, given this series, they would do anything to bring Michael back. The situations that are in this movie make no sense and seem really off. Like, why would they have Jamie Lee Curtis on the advertisement despite being killed 15 minutes in? If this found footage internet show is being broadcast live with a serial killer in it, why would no one call 911? And why won't any of them leave if Michael's actually there? I know they locked the doors on them after going into the house, but there's a lot here for them to use to break the windows or the doors. Back in 2014, I was doing that whole caustic critic thing, being like, oh, this is the worst thing ever, and don't get me wrong, this is a bad movie, and an unnecessary one too, but over the years, I've learned to love this movie, specifically for how bad it is. I mean, how can you not laugh at seeing Busta Rhymes dressed up as Michael yelling at the actual Michael Myers?
You don't get it? You don't get it? Your shit ain't working up there or something?
Or this weird guy who tried to be scary and has been a running gag on my show for years. Or the fact that Michael is defeated by Busta Rhymes, who knows karate, electrocutes Myers in the balls, and spits out one-liners.
Trick or treat, motherfucker.
After that, the very next year, I took a look at the 5th installment in the series, The Revenge of Michael Myers. A disappointing, annoying, rushed sequel that was pushed into theaters 1 year after the success of the last movie. It kills off Rachel and is replaced with her friend Tina along with her friends, who are extremely annoying and loves to pull pranks on one another. One of the only redeeming things in this is actually Jamie and Dr. Loomis, once again played by Daniel Harris and Donald Pleasance. After the events of the last movie, Jamie is often mute for half of the movie due to being traumatized by what happened, and Donald Pleasance does a great job as Loomis and gives one of the best lines since the first movie.
I prayed that he would burn in hell, but in my heart I knew that hell would not have him.
But unfortunately, that couldn't save the movie too much. They tried to do something different by having Michael and Jamie share a psychic link with one another, which isn't explained very well. They also tried introducing this mysterious Man in Black character, but they had no idea what to do with this character. No, really. The writers had no clue how to identify this guy or who it would be. Some have theorized that this could have been Michael's twin brother, given how they have this mysterious thorn symbol tattooed on their wrist, which also appears during some parts of the movie. Halloween fans had to wait 6 years to finally get the answers to these questions, and it was through The Curse of Michael Myers, which I've already covered both versions of this movie back in 2017. And to put that in 2020 times, that was 10 years ago. Now I say both versions because one version of the movie, dubbed the producer's cut, only existed on the internet as a low quality bootleg for the longest time. It wouldn't be until 2014 that the movie was remastered and given a dedicated Blu-ray release. And if you remember when I originally reviewed these, I'm not a big fan of either cut of this movie. No, I am not. Where do I begin? First of all, the thorn symbol is actually the mark of this cult that is ran by the Man in Black, who turns out to be Dr. Wynn, who is a minor character in the first movie. Then, they decide to make Michael a pawn for this cult, and later, they make him rape his teenage niece Jamie, giving birth to a new inbred relative to the Myers family.
No!
Keep in mind that all of this is explained in the producer's cut. If you were watching the theatrical cut, which is the version that a lot of people were more recognizable with, you would have no idea what's going on. This was also the film debut of Paul Rudd, who plays Tommy Doyle, the child Laurie babysat in the first movie. And again, this is another one of many attempts this movie tries to tie itself back to the first one. Sure, Rudd in his very first film couldn't act his way out of a paper bag, but he actually has one of my favorite scenes as Tommy. No, it's not the "Mommy, it's raining red" scene or beating the shit out of Myers making him bleed Heinz green ketchup. No. It's actually a very dramatic scene of Tommy in the movie, and I'm going to show a clip of that right now.
Eric! Like... Eric, stop!
I'm telling y'all, it really tugs at the heartstrings. Even the ending didn't make any sense. I already mentioned in the theatrical cut that Michael was beaten to death with a lead pipe, but in the producer's cut, he's stopped by a bunch of stones on the floor, and when Loomis goes back to see Michael, it's revealed that Wynn is now dressed as Myers, and Michael is now dressed as Wynn, and escapes. Before he dies, Wynn tells Loomis that he's Myers' new caretaker, and the thorn symbol is revealed on his arm. Even if they made a sequel to this movie, it would not work because after initial filming was wrapped, Donald Pleasance sadly passed away. So they had to recut the movie because they couldn't release it in theaters due to a failed test screening that consisted of 14-year-old boys. Yes, really. They added in new scenes and a new ending with, like I said, Michael being beaten with a lead pipe, a shot of Loomis taken from the original cut where he says he has unfinished business. It cuts back to where Michael was, but all that is left is his mask, and we hear Loomis screaming in the distance, meaning that Dr. Loomis died off screen. This scream was taken from the producer's cut, which was the last sound Donald Pleasance ever uttered on film. All in all, either version of this movie is a mess and shat all over the Michael Myers legacy. Also, it should have been warning signs that a cut of this movie that has the villain perform sexual assault in said movie that was produced by Miramax, who are founded by these pieces of shit. And the Halloween series was salvaged a little bit with H2O, but of course, we all know that didn't stay true for long. Then, the very next year, 2018, I took a look at both of the Rob Zombie Halloween movies, and my thoughts on both of them go as such. I find myself to be very hit and miss with the first one. I understand that Zombie tried to explain more of Michael's backstory, but that led to him having a very disruptive, violent family and be bullied at school because his mom is a stripper, while also adding in the F-bomb so much, you would have thought this was made by the Tourette's guy.
Ouch! Motherfucker, I'll kick her ass!
Mike, it's my fault. I failed you.
Fuck you and everyone bullshit that looks like you! I'm gonna take a piss. When I come back, I'm gonna talk about the Mighty Duck movies.
It does try to redeem itself a bit by becoming a standard remake of the original, but it's only by a little bit. Then in 2009, the sequel came out where Zombie was given full creative freedom, and sweet Jesus, it shows in this movie. My only positives in this one is the hobo look that Michael has, because he would be homeless given that the cops will be looking for someone that has his likeness. I also love the portrayal of Sheriff Brackett, played by Chucky star Brad Dourif, mostly when he sees the dead body of his daughter Annie, played by Halloween 4 and 5 star Daniel Harris. Brackett is willing to put a bullet in Loomis's head because of his actions, and revealing that Laurie is Michael's sister in his new book.
I wanna shoot him. Shoot him! I wanna fucking shoot him!
But the negatives I have with this movie overshadow the positives. They tried doing the psychic link again with Myers and one of his family members, the bizarre dream sequences, and the whole white horse with the ghost mom thing was too out of nowhere. I was almost about to give praise to how Laurie was treated in this movie. She's still traumatized by that night, and whenever she looks at Annie, who she lives with now along with her father, she's reminded of that night and blames herself. It's some heavy stuff, but the problem is they made Laurie really unlikable.
Asshole!
Another thing, I still don't know what happened to that copy of the movie that came to life and escaped all those years ago, because just like Loomis, I shot it 6 times! I think you all get it at this point. I've talked about every single bad sequel that has happened in this franchise, or remake, which also had a terrible sequel, and yet I am still not done with Halloween. I've got about a handful of movies left, so it's about time we get to the good ones. And seeing how we have Halloween Kills coming out, I figured we'd talk about the previous installment that is called Halloween. So how did they make this movie? Well, first you take the 1981 version of Halloween 2 and all the sequels up to Resurrection, you stack them all up as if they were Pringles, and then you do this. That's pretty much it, because the 2018 movie, which is not only the 11th installment in the Halloween series, but it's a direct sequel to the 1981 original and retcons all the entries up until this point. And now there are at least 4 timelines. The first one has Halloween up to Halloween 6, the second one has the first 2 Halloween movies, then H2O and Resurrection, the third one being the Rob Zombie movies, the fourth one now having Halloween and Halloween. There's also a 5th timeline that has Halloween and Season of the Witch, when the franchise was originally going to be an anthology series. And if you were listening, that means that the Halloween franchise now has 3 movies that are simply titled as Halloween.
Everybody got that? Good!
Well, before we dive into the movie, knowing that Halloween is a sequel, let's quickly take a look at Halloween. Now, I know for any horror fan, this is a film that needs no introduction. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to do that anyway. The original 1978 film was actually a low-budget independent film directed by John Carpenter and produced by Deborah Hill. This was also classified as the first slasher film, which is pretty debatable when you look at films like Psycho and Black Christmas. But this movie was responsible for bringing the slasher genre into the mainstream. The film opens with the famous sequence from the killer's POV. It goes on for 5 minutes and seems to be a one continuous take. but after many viewings over the years, you begin to notice the cuts. Anyway, a young girl named Judith is murdered and we find out that the killer is Michael Myers, Judith's little brother.
Michael?
You know, if you didn't know anything about this, you would think that Michael was like an ex-boyfriend or something. But the fact that it was a little kid that did this makes it more creepy. Another thing you notice is that Michael's father nor his mother are asking him any questions like, "What's going on?" or "Whose blood is that?" Even when the camera pulls out, they don't even go into the house to check what happened. No, they just stand there looking surprised at their son. At least the mom put her hands in her coat pockets. It's probably chilly outside. All in all, it's a creative way to open up the film and it leaves the viewer asking questions. Cut to 15 years later where Michael's doctor Samuel Loomis, played by Donald Pleasance, along with his colleague Marion Chambers, begin to escort Myers to a court hearing hoping that he'll never be released. But they notice some of the patients at the mental hospital are outside in the rain. Loomis tries to go inside to see what's going on, but Michael hijacks the car thanks to that helpful wrench on his hand, as he proceeds to drive off. Afterwards, we find out that Michael killed a car mechanic, took his jumpsuit, and later broke into a store and stole a mask.
Marv, hey, it's me and I'm nude.
The original mask was actually a Don Post Studios mask taken from a life cast of William Shatner for the movie The Devil's Reign. It was then painted white and used for the first 2 movies. Apparently someone still owns the original mask. These are the last few photographs I could find of it, and you can see how it's decomposed over the years. The original mask is iconic and what you instantly think of when Halloween is brought up, which is why in the later sequels they look either not as good or too alien looking like the one in Halloween 5. This has to be the worst looking Myers mask in the whole series. Second worst. Another iconic thing about the original movie was the film debut of Jamie Lee Curtis, who was the daughter of Janet Leigh, who herself was famous for Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. She plays Laurie Strode, who is a pretty simple character. She's a smart, kind, yet introverted girl. And unlike her friends, Linda and Annie, she doesn't date much. So on Halloween, rather than doing the Humpty Humps, she's babysitting Tommy Doyle, Michael stalks her, kills her friends, and the rest, as they say, is history. And yes, as shown there, after some looking around investigating, Loomis finally comes across the car Michael drove away in. And hearing Tommy and another kid Laurie was sitting for, Lindsay Wallace, Loomis finally finds Michael and shoots him a grand total of... I'm sorry, how many times was it?
I shot him 6 times!
Oh, okay. He shoots him 6 times! And it ends with Michael escaping once again, followed by shots of the neighborhood in the dark night, and the sounds of Michael's breathing getting louder and louder, just to prove that he's out there, somewhere. You know, if you take out all the sequels, the remakes, and the timelines, and just focused on this one by itself, it's still a really good movie. Of course, as I mentioned, it brought the slasher genre to the mainstream, spawned countless sequels and imitators, and even a video game adaptation for the Atari 2600. Sure, it looks crude and you can't do much, but it's pretty interesting and impressive for one of the first horror video games ever made.
Great graphics.
Not to mention that Siskel and Ebert talked about it on their special, Women in Danger, saying that it's different from the other horror movies at the time.
One of the things a short scene can't show you is that Halloween is directed and acted with a great deal more artistry and craftsmanship than the sleaze bucket movies we've been talking about. But there's another much more important difference. As you watch Halloween, your basic sympathies are always enlisted on the side of the woman, not with the killer. The movie develops its women characters as independent, intelligent, spunky, and interesting people. Halloween does not hate women.
Yeah, you know, when I saw that scene, I must admit I wasn't really worrying about the woman as much as I was placing myself in that closet and thinking about that killer, how I would handle it. And I was also appreciating the fact that I think Halloween not only doesn't hate women, but it loves film and filmmaking. That music is just fabulous. The way he starts one theme, then lays another thing on top of it, keeping the other theme. Really good. Also, the light coming through the slats in that closet. This is a film that's sort of up. That scene is up, and you're jumpy, rather than getting depressed and feeling sorry and feeling sorry that you're even watching it. An upbeat thing.
So now for Halloween 2018. You might be wondering, just like I was when this was announced the previous year, how do you make another movie in the series without doing a full-on remake? Well, director David Gordon Green and writer Danny McBride found a way.
What if Michael had been captured at the end of one? What does that do to the story? How does it change it?
So they went ahead and did something for a horror movie that was never done before. We don't talk about that. They went ahead and made a reboot that returns to the roots of the original. Even John Carpenter came back to work on the new movie. For years, he stayed away from Halloween and was okay to receive a paycheck. However, after not being happy with all the sequels and the remake, he finally comes back as an executive producer and creative consultant. And yes, that even means he came back to do the music for the movie along with Daniel Davies and his son, Cody Carpenter.
Alright. Yes!
It's 40 years after the events of the first movie back in 1978, so what's happened since then? Well, let's go ahead and find out by taking a look at the sequel to Halloween. No, I don't mean that sequel to Halloween. I mean the follow-up to the first Halloween that is also named Halloween. No, not that Halloween. I'm talking about the sequel to Halloween. Okay? Not that sequel! Look, I'm talking about the sequel to Halloween, which is a follow-up to the first Halloween that shares the same name as Halloween.
Would you just get on with it?
Okay, jeez, this is Halloween 2018. It's not my fault this timeline's fucked up.
Stay tuned. The Halloween thriller will return after these messages.
Goblins, werewolves, vampires. They're not real, but he is a real nightmare. Jamie Lee Curtis, Donald Pleasance. It's the night he came home. Halloween 2, Thursday at 8 on Channel 17. Parental discretion advised.
Trick or treat! Darn, I knew I should have worn a costume. Yo, Bo Peep, what you got in your bag?
Introducing Roy Rogers' Big Chicken Deal. 2 plump and juicy pieces of fried chicken, hot, crisp fries, and a fresh baked biscuit. Roy Rogers' Big Chicken Deal, just $1.99.
Don't you even think about it.
Oh, I do enjoy an evening with a little light entertainment. But when your video heads get dirty, you lose your picture. Not a pretty sight. Happily, this new Polaroid video cassette will help you. It actually cleans your heads as it plays, so dirty heads needn't haunt you. New Polaroid video cassettes. Get the picture?
The film starts at Smith's Grove Mental Institution, where we're introduced to true crime podcasters Aaron Corey and Dana Hines, as they hopefully try to get some insight on Michael Myers. They meet up with Michael's psychiatrist, Dr. Sartain, who is a former student of the late Dr. Loomis, as they all go outside to the prison yard, which looks like a giant game of checkers. Odd design work. And at the middle of this board is the boogeyman himself. Aaron tries to get some answers out of Michael, but given that he hasn't said a word in 60 years, it's very unlikely that he'll say anything despite everyone wanting him to, which is a thing in this movie for some reason. What Aaron and Dana's goal here is to try to get some answer from Michael about his crimes before he's transferred to a maximum security prison. And given that the film begins 2 days before Halloween, I see no problems happening here.
You'll be sorry!
Aaron tries another tactic for Michael, and as by showing him the old mask he wore back in '78.
I borrowed something from a friend at the Attorney General's office, Michael. You feel it, don't you, Michael? You feel the mask.
Now, I don't think that'll actually work, just giving away criminal evidence to a couple of podcasters, but whatever, anything to make the plot go forward. Either way, this doesn't work and has no effect on Michael. All it does is make the patients get riled up and screaming, as Aaron once again asks Michael to
say something!
Aaron and Dana try their next idea and talk to the person who was a victim of Michael's rampage 40 years ago. That of course being Laurie Strode, once again played by Jamie Lee Curtis. At first, she's reluctant to allow them into her home that's in the middle of nowhere, but Aaron and Dana offer to pay her in cash so they can have Laurie for their podcast. To be fair, it's not that far off with her doing H2O only for a paycheck.
Hello.
Hi, we're looking for Laurie Strode? And a clean pair of shorts. They do try to get some insight from Laurie about Michael because they believe there's more to him in the killings. The two even try to bring up how this reflected on Laurie's life with 2 failed marriages and a very rocky relationship with her daughter and granddaughter. But before they could get more information, Laurie cuts the interview short and asks them to leave.
Time's up. I'll accept my payment.
And that right there is when she had to be in Resurrection. Speaking of her family, we cut to the home of her daughter Karen. I'm not doing the joke, shut up. And her teenage daughter Allison, played respectfully by Judy Greer and Andy Manichak. We're also introduced to Karen's husband and Allison's father Ray, as we see him putting in mouse traps.
Oh, mother! Oh, man. I got peanut butter on my penis.
Ew, Dad.
Now you may cringe at that little bit of comedy, but let me remind you that Ray is played by Toby Huss, and he was Archie, the strongest man in the world. Allison asks her mom if her grandmother is coming to dinner tonight, but Karen says she couldn't. Allison then explains to her friends Vicky and Dave on their way to school that her family changes around Halloween because of what Laurie went through.
Wasn't it her brother who, cold-blooded mutilated all those teenagers?
No. That's just a bit that some people made up to make him feel better, I think.
Now, that little tidbit is very interesting because if you remember from the first movie, they really never addressed that Laurie and Michael were related in any way whatsoever. She was simply at the wrong place at the wrong time. It wouldn't be until 1980 when NBC bought the rights to show Halloween on their network, where 12 minutes of extra footage had to be added to the runtime to fill in the 2-hour slot, which was done during the production of the 1981 sequel that was happening at the same time, during which they shot new scenes to reveal that Laurie is Michael's sister. Carpenter was never proud of the idea of calling it a mistake and saying that it was stupid and awful. In fact, he also stated that he was drunk when writing the plot development. And with him calling the twist about them being siblings stupid, I do agree with that for at least 3 reasons. The first being that Michael is scarier when he kills at random with no difference between life and death and right or wrong. Plus, like I said earlier, Laurie was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. As for my second reason, well, it actually brings up a question about the twist in Halloween 2. We are not starting this shit again! Anyway, my question about this sequel is, if Michael and Laurie were siblings and she saw him at a young age, why doesn't she remember any of this? And it's not like she was a baby when Michael was locked up for murdering his sister. No, she sees him in a dream when she was a young girl. There's probably an explanation for that, but that's something I noticed when doing research for this video. Finally, for my third reason, and it's a personal theory of mine, if you take a step back and watch the scenes from the TV version, mainly the scene where the word sister is carved into the door, and look at it through the perspective of this new timeline of the original and the 2018 movie, Michael was probably talking about his actual sister from the movie, Judith. I mean, geez, he was actually that dedicated to lift up her tombstone out of the ground and have it be on top of a dead body for display. He may be an emotionless, murdering psychopath, but Michael's a man of presentation. Yes, that third reason might bring up more questions, but as a personal theory, that's how I see it, in my opinion. Anyway, while Allison's in school, sitting in the exact same spot her grandmother was when she was in school, odd coincidence, nonetheless, she sees Laurie outside the window. She's there to pass the money that Aaron and Dana gave her to Allison for her annual honors accomplishment. The thing about Allison is that she wishes to have a relationship with her grandmother, but she's also frustrated that Laurie isn't trying to move on from her fear and pain of that night.
It took priority over your family. It cost you your family. Say goodbye to Michael and get over it.
This then transitions to while Aaron and Dana are in a motel building listening to an audio recording of the late Dr. Loomis, the guards begin to escort the patients, including Michael, to the new facility, as Laurie watches the bus pull off and drive away from afar. Now I just want to say this right off the bat. This portrayal of Laurie Strode is easily my favorite and probably the most accurate one we've gotten in a long time. I've kinda tiptoed over it here and there, but it's established that Laurie has developed agoraphobia, which is the fear of places and situations that might cause panic, helplessness, or embarrassment. But due to that night 40 years ago, she also suffers from PTSD. It's revealed that when Michael vanished after Loomis shot him 6 times, he was able to capture Michael and get him reincarcerated with the help of the Haddonfield police. I mean, sure, for Loomis, it helped him make sure that Myers is locked up again and hopes that he'll die inside that sanitarium.
It needs to die.
But you also gotta look at these events through the perspective of Laurie after that night. Sure, Michael got captured, but it didn't solve anything. Her friends are still dead and she's gonna have some level of trauma for a long time, especially when October comes around every year. It's even established when Laurie is watching the prison bus taking Michael away, and when she goes to the dinner with Karen, Ray, Allison, and her boyfriend Cameron, that Laurie's an alcoholic. At the dinner, there's a moment where she tries to be calm and not break down after seeing Michael, but she can't.
I saw him. The shape.
Mom.
I wanted to kill him.
Okay, that's enough, Laurie.
I didn't know what to do.
Laurie can't move forward with her life because everything in it has fallen away from her, hence the 2 divorces and having Karen be taken away from her at a young age. In a deleted scene where Laurie's at a shooting range behind her home, it shows her cleaning and inspecting her guns. There's a moment where she contemplates suicide, but then a hallucination of Michael is shown before she could. The other time this happens is during the police escort where Laurie is crying and screaming in her truck. You can see a shadowy figure that resembles Myers. This kinda reminds me of a scene in H2O where Laurie is having the same type of hallucinations of Michael, where, of course, on Halloween, her tragic memories from that night 20 years ago come back to haunt her.
Piss off, Ghost!
He's freaking gone.
And sure, you can poke fun at her home being fortified to the point that it can make Kevin McAllister run for his paint cans, but you can see that she's prepared for Michael's return, because she knows that one day he will escape. Laurie even says this in a line of dialogue later on in the movie.
That I pray every night that he would escape.
What the hell do you do that for?
So I can kill him.
Karen finally explains to Allison why she was taken away from her mother. It's revealed that Laurie had her go through the same combat and survival training that she did until CPS came and took her.
I've spent my entire life trying to get over the paranoia and neuroses that she has projected on me.
You can tell how traumatized I am by the tone of my voice. Seriously, you couldn't do another take of her line read? But I think Laurie has nothing to worry about. It's only a day before Halloween while Michael's being escorted. I see nothing going wrong here. Oh no, the bus carrying Michael crashed.
Son of a bitch!
Yup, as a father and his son are driving later on that night, they come across the wrecked bus with the father going to check it. The son notices that his dad hasn't come back yet, so he grabs the rifle from the back and goes to look for himself.
Don't shoot!
Doing a bang-up job, as you can see. Being scared, the kid runs back to the van and plans to drive away to get help. So given that this is a kid in a horror movie, I'm sure he'll be fine. Holy shit. Michael Myers just killed a kid. And don't get me wrong, I know that his goal in Halloween 4 and 5 was to kill Jamie, who was a child, but to see him actually do it is shocking. Afterwards, the police are eventually called into the wreckage, where we're introduced to Deputy Frank Hawkins, who stays with the injured Sartain so he can ask him some questions about what happened. As the sheriff comes in to ask him what's going on, Hawkins tells him that one of the inmates on the bus was Michael Myers, and that he might be making his way back to Haddonfield. You know, I just realized, what happened to those other inmates? I mean, there's more than just Myers on that piece of paper, and we never see them getting recaptured. So, what happened? Are they hitchhiking to go back to their own horror movie towns? It's also revealed later on that Hawkins was the officer who arrested Michael back in 1978, which also makes you wonder how he kept him unconscious for so long. It's 150 miles back to Smith's Grove, and there's so many times you could shoot someone in multiples of 6. Speaking of Myers, after witnessing Aaron and Dana examine and discuss Judith at her grave spot, and not doing a good job hiding after 40 years, in one of my favorite moments in the movie, Michael follows them to this gas station. The reason why this moment is one of my favorites because it was actually pointed out to me thanks to my brother. This woman in the red van actually saw Michael following one of the mechanics into the garage. She tries to signal Aaron to tell him that he's there by shifting her eyes towards the garage, but Aaron doesn't notice it himself. Even after that, you can see in the background that Myers is killing the mechanic to steal his jumpsuit. Subtle stuff like that is really fun to see on repeated viewings after a long time. While this was going on, Dana uses the restroom as Michael, after getting all dressed in a fresh new jumpsuit, goes in and shows her his new skill. First it was being able to drive a car with no training, now he's learned how to be a dentist!
Look, your stall is the only one that has toilet paper, and I've had a turtle head poking out since the bus crash. Give me the damn TP!
Aaron finally then notices the mechanics Michael killed. One stripped down to his skivvies for his jumpsuit, and another with his jaw broken for his teeth. He eventually hears Dana screaming and comes into the bathroom to save her and stop Michael. It doesn't go well. Okay, so funny story here. When I saw the first trailer for this movie back in 2018, and when it hard cuts to Michael slamming Aaron's head on the bathroom stall, no joke, I thought it was Myers slamming his own head on the door, just trying to get it open. I don't know what it is, but the idea and the visual of a 6-year-old man slamming his own head into the door, it's just funny to me. So yeah, Michael has killed both Aaron and Dana. You would think that they would have played a bigger part in the movie, but just like that kid Myers killed, he is not holding back and will kill anyone who gets in his way.
Ah, there you are, old Masky McGee. It's been 40 years since I've seen you. Reunited and it feels so good.
Yup, that's right, viewers. That's the reason why my voice sounds like this. I'm just like Darth Vader. Once the mask is taken off, under you'll see an old, crusty white man.
Lori eventually hears about the bus crashing and goes to the crime scene where Aaron and Dana's bodies are being tagged and bagged. Fearing for the worst, she goes to Karen's house and tells her that Michael might have escaped and that they have to be ready if he's coming here. But of course, Karen doesn't believe her mother and wants nothing to do with her.
The world is not a dark and evil place. It is full of love and understanding, and I'm not letting your psychotic rants confuse me or convince me otherwise.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go ahead and disagree with you there. And now we get to what's easily the best part of the movie. In one long continuous take, we see Michael begin to wander the streets, find a hammer, break into the house of this woman, proceeds to kill her with said hammer, and trades that off for the classic kitchen knife. When Michael begins to leave the house, you can hear the sound of a baby crying. No joke, when I saw this in theaters, I thought he was gonna kill the baby. Like, my heart stopped when I saw him shift his head towards the baby crib, but then the sigh of relief I had when he kept walking away. As I said, Michael walks out of the house, mind you, in the same continuous take, and he goes to the house next door to kill someone else.
Woo! I'm killing dudes in my sleep!
All in all, this sequence is very well done and put together. Sure, they knew CG at the end for the knife blade, but I figured there was no way to pull off a prosthetic like that for only a few seconds when you're having to possibly redo this 3-minute long continuous shot multiple times, making sure that the timing and coordination is done right. Also, the music used here from the soundtrack, which is titled The Shape Returns, is a damn good rendition of the Halloween theme. I can't play it here because of copyright, obviously, but give it a listen for yourself, it's really good. So while Allison and Cameron are at a Halloween party at their school, Her friend Vicky is babysitting this little boy named Julian, and just like that 3-minute sequence from earlier, Julian is one of the best parts of the movie.
Don't lie to me. That's against the rules. I'm telling my mom.
Well, I'm gonna tell your mom about your browser history.
You better not.
You can get me in trouble, I can get you in trouble.
Just the dynamic that he and Vicky have is great, and the lines that Julian's actor has is pretty funny.
If I had some other kind of babysitter, she'd be reading me a story. I wouldn't be up clipping my nasty ass toenails.
That's another thing I was surprised by with this movie. Its comedic moments. If you recall from one of the Halloween reviews I did years ago, when I heard that Danny McBride was going to be one of the writers on this, I legit said, oh good god, because I thought it was going to overshadow the horror elements in this movie, but surprisingly, they don't. The comedic parts are very small and they just come and go. After talking to Vicky, Allison comes back to see that Cameron is cheating on her with another girl at the party. Okay, I don't care what school you're at, there is no way in hell they will allow that type of costume. You look like sexy Tony the Tiger, and I'm surprised that the chaperones at this high school let this fly under the radar. I mean, what were you planning to do with this get-up? Go audition for that Nightmare Fuel Cats movie, or try to seduce Joe Exotic? Why would you want to do either of those? Because we all know that's not great! So all that relationship is falling apart thanks to sexy Carol Baskins. That's something I never thought I would say in the 9 years of doing this show. Vicky gets a surprise jump scare from her boyfriend Dave. Again, another thing I'm surprised by with this movie, whenever they do the fake out jump scares, almost all the time they're quiet and they don't do the cliche jump scare boom or sing sounds. Well anyway, Dave is there to keep Vicky company while she babysits and gets ready for horror movie trope number 2, premarital sex. And as we all know, thanks to Scream, that's a big no-no!
You are so getting dry fucked tonight.
Ah, the only type of sex Ben Shapiro knows about. But before they could do the nasty, Julian interrupts them because he thought he saw someone in his room. Vicky goes up there with him to check it out and sees that nothing is there. So while she's tucking Julian back into bed, Dave is getting high and becoming the son of mediocrity.
Can you close the closet door?
Oh, it's probably a football. Maybe a board game. Psych, it's me!
Oh shit!
So Michael goes ahead and kills Vicky and sometime later Dave as Julian flees out of the house. And even though they were the tropes you would see in any slasher movie, it is still somewhat sad to see them go. After a while, Hawkins and Laurie both hear the incident on their radios as they both haul ass to the house. Hawkins makes it there early to come across the bodies of Vicky and Dave as Laurie arrives behind him, and for the first time in 40 years, she sees the shape. Now, before this movie was released, articles were coming out saying that Nick Castle, who played Michael Myers in the original, was going to come back to reprise the role, which does sound really exciting to hear. But unfortunately, that's not entirely true and was very misleading. Throughout the movie, Michael is played by James Jude Courtney, both masked and unmasked, and he does a good job making his character intimidating and scary. Nick Castle's return as Myers is actually a small cameo where he does the famous head tilt, but it's in a mirror, through a window, and filmed a few yards away. So that part is pretty disappointing, but at least Nick was able to reprise Myers' famous breathing. I guess Castle's return isn't that different than how it was in the original movie, where he was credited as The Shape due to playing Michael for a majority of the time. But aside from him, there were several people who played Myers in the first movie. To my knowledge, there was Tony Moran who played Michael when he was unmasked. Then when he's smashing a closet or breaking a door, he's played by co-editor and production designer Tommy Lee Wallace. When he's shot and falls off the balcony, he's played by stunt performer James Winburn. Young Michael is played by Will Sadden. During the long POV shot in the beginning, that's Deborah Hill. And finally, it was even rumored that John Carpenter got to play Michael Myers at some point. Yes! So after Michael disappears from the crime scene, Laurie is then introduced to the now awake Sartain.
I'm Michael's doctor, Ranbir Sartain.
You're the new Loomis.
I figured it would be a better time than never to talk about Sartain and how I feel about him. Honestly, he's alright, just pretty forgettable. I think the reason why that might be is because we don't get that much time with him. From the time he's shot and unconscious to when he comes to see Hawkins at the crime scene, we don't see him for almost a half hour later on in the film. And look, I get why we have Sartain in this movie. they needed to fill in the archetype for Loomis due to Donald Pleasance no longer being with us, obviously. I just wish they could have fleshed out Sartain a bit more. So after getting furious, seeing Cameron cheat on her with gender-swapped Cool Cat, well, that's gonna be my new sleep paralysis demon for a while, Allison leaves the party with her friend Oscar, who, in a somewhat drunken state, tries to make his move on her. It goes about as well as you think.
Nice guys finish last.
What the fuck?
You're not with Cameron anymore.
That does not mean I want to be with you.
So as Allison walks back home, Oscar sees Michael as the motion detector lights start going on and off.
I'm leaving, right? I don't...
That get you? No? Shit! I thought it would because of how effective the actual scare was in the movie. Now I'm just standing here like a jackass. How the hell do I even get out of here? I'm gonna try that fence over there. I'm gonna see what that happens. Wish me luck. Okay, let's see if I can do this here. An easy climb so far. Nothing bad here. Ow! Shit! Jesus Christ, that fence just pricked the shit out of me. Why is it so sharp? That could seriously injure, if not kill somebody. No way in hell I'm doing that again. You know, I think I might actually try to hop over that little wall over there. So... Ow! Why did I do that? We're going to take a commercial break while I try to get out of here before the owner of this house notices me. So, wish me luck. Ow. Okay, it might not be that athletic, but let's see if I can do this. Alright, here we go. Alright. On the ledge. Oh no, I'm slipping. Oh. Hey! Oh! Ow!
Stay tuned. The Halloween thriller will return after these messages.
Fancy game? Nightmare, the game hosted by a video.
I am the gatekeeper!
To win, you must stop it.
Roll the die!
The video board game Nightmare. The gatekeeper talks to you.
Whose turn is it next?
And you must answer him.
Answer me! Yes, my gatekeeper. Go for it!
Nightmare, a race against time for 3 to 6 very game players.
Let's party!
Check it out! You guys hear something? Come on, shut up!
You guys are so immature. Was that your sister? I'm not sure. Get out of here!
Hey, get out of the yard!
Wait a minute! I'm thirsty!
Put them out! Ow! Oh my god!
Allison then hears Oscar's screams as she goes back to him, but it's too late as she sees him being killed by Michael. Well, at least Oscar now knows how Simon Skinner feels. Allison is then picked up by Hawkins and Sartain. They take her back to Laurie's house, where Karen and Ray are waiting for them. On their way there, they come across Michael walking down the street.
Don't hit him! Look out!
Have y'all ever experienced deja vu?
You came out of nowhere.
Sartain checks on Michael to see if he's alive, as Hawkins tells him to get out of the way so he can kill Michael once and for all.
No. I'm still gonna blow this motherfucker's brains out.
Wait, what? So it turns out that Sartain is crazy and... I'm sorry. It's just... What the hell are you doing? You can't go from killing someone to then wearing Michael's mask. The shift in tone happened so fast, I think he gave people in the theater whiplash.
There. Sure glad I don't look stupid in this.
As I was saying, Sartain, in a very confusing twist, turns out to be crazy and reveals to Allison that he was the one who arranged for Michael's escape because he's obsessed with understanding the evil mind of Myers. He wanted to see the animal in the wild, and now he plans to reunite Michael with Laurie. Why? The two are no longer siblings, so I don't know why this would be the way for Michael to go after Laurie. It seriously feels like they were backed into a corner in the writer's room, just trying to figure out a way to get these two together for the finale. They could have come up with anything else, but really? This is the best they could come up with? Having a doctor who looked like he posed no threat turn out to be evil? So on the way to Laurie's house, Sartain states that out of all of his attempts, he never gotten a word out of Michael after many studies with him. This gives Allison the idea to get out of the car by lying to him saying that he actually talked to her. So Sartain stops the car to listen, and it's by pure coincidence that Michael wakes up and puts his mask back on.
Michael.
You know, the way that Michael's kicking the back of the car seat, it looks like he's just a kid having a temper tantrum.
You said we were going to go to McDonald's!
After basically getting paralyzed by Myers, Sartain has one last request before dying.
Say something.
Now I know that Michael's a silent character, but come on! There are so many cheesy one-liners he could have said, like...
High foot.
High foot? Or...
Gotta cut you loose. Foot loose.
Or even...
If you're killing and you know it, stomp your feet.
If they wanted Michael to say something, they could have done one of those, to be totally honest. You also gotta love how grotesque some of these off-screen kills are in the movie. It really makes you question how Michael acts them off. You know, aside from Sartain being turned into hamburger helper. Even later on, when Ray observes the patrol car that pulls up, Michael somehow turns one of the officers into a freaking jack-o'-lantern. Holy shit. I know I said this in one of the previous Halloween videos, but damn, Michael's a pretty good pumpkin carver. As Ray steps away from the car, Michael sneaks up behind and kills him. You know, none of this would have happened if he had his sweater on, which is made out of 60% titanium and 40% cotton. Strongest man in the world, my ass. Hearing the commotion outside, Laurie sends Karen downstairs to a safe room as she locks the front door and gets real close to it. Oh gee, I wonder what's gonna happen. You know, after 40 years, you'd think Laurie would be more alert for something like that. Laurie manages to get out of Michael's grasp by legit shooting some of his fingers off. Okay, if Myers were to say anything in this movie, this would be a perfect moment.
Oh god damn it, motherfucking cocksucking butt fucking son of a whore shit!
So for almost 5 minutes, Laurie searches the house for Michael, locking off each room she checks with security doors. I mentioned the time it takes because this scene runs circles around the one from Rob Zombie's Halloween where Myers was looking for Laurie. Hell, most of the time he was just staring at a wall. Eventually, Laurie is then cornered by Michael for their final showdown. Well, that was anticlimactic. Actually, no. She's okay.
Yes! Yes!
While this goes on, Allison makes it to Laurie's house and is guided to the safe room by her mother. Michael hears the noises coming from downstairs and tries to break into the room as Karen begins to panic.
Help us! I can't do it!
Gotcha.
Ow, would you please stop shooting me? It actually hurts this time around!
Laurie then reappears as the 3 generations of Strodes, or as Jamie Lee Curtis likes to call them, Hallow Women. And I'm not gonna lie, that does sound pretty cool. The 3 kick Michael's ass and lock him down in the safe room, as it turns out that the room is actually a trap Laurie had set up for a long time. She turns the gas on in the house, lights up a flare, and sets it ablaze with Michael just down there looking up at him while everything is exploding and going crazy around him. This is 2020. Now before we wrap things up, it turns out there's actually an alternate ending to this movie. Don't worry, this is nothing like Halloween 6 or, God forbid, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, because you might have seen bits of the other ending without even knowing about it. If you've seen the first trailer or any TV spots, you might have noticed Laurie and Michael going head to head in a knife fight. It got me excited because it looked like it might be Laurie's final fight with the boogeyman. Yeah, and given what we saw in the final product, it did seem like we wouldn't get that ending. But when I got the movie as a birthday gift in 2019, I noticed on the back of the case a still of Allison holding a kitchen knife, which was also in a TV spot I do remember seeing. So I popped the movie in, went to the deleted scenes, hoping to see an alternate ending option, and it wasn't there. That made me really disappointed. The only way we can experience the other ending now is through some stills of an early draft of the script. From what I can tell by how the page starts, it's right after Michael throws Laurie off the balcony and Allison walks up to the house. Laurie goes up to her granddaughter and tells her that she can't be there, even though the police were trying to escort her after she saw Michael in the neighborhood. Odd mixed signals here, but anyway. She tells Allison to run and save herself, but she turns back to see Michael standing on the porch. She then pulls out a big hunting knife from her belt as Michael's equipped with a kitchen knife, and with how the page describes it, with the mindset of a mama bear, Laurie turns back to the shape and charges him. This then leads to the shots we saw in the first trailer with the two fighting, going knife to knife with each other. Michael, despite losing blood from his missing fingers, has relentless momentum and drives his knife into Laurie's chest. On the porch, Karen, whose name in the early draft is Shanna, thank God it's not Shannon! Anyway, she opens the door slowly and shoots Michael in the chest with a crossbow. Karen and Allison help Laurie get up and flag down a passing truck to pick them up and get them the hell out of there. They sit in the back of the truck stunned, numb, and reflective of the night behind them. It then transitions back to Michael taking the arrow out of him and moving through the woods with the moonlight catching his mask. He finds a tree, then takes a seat. He touches his chest, feels his wounds, his missing fingers. He tilts his head as his hand presses into his blood-stained clothing while his breathing deepens, exhausted, or possibly his last. As I've already said, this ending wouldn't make any sense given how we're getting Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, but for a moment, I want you to go back to 2018 when this movie was still new and we didn't have any announcements for any other sequels happening. Or to help you out, step into the mind when seeing this movie in theaters for the first time. When it got to the ending we eventually got, I was hoping to see that knife fight in the yard we were teased with, but we didn't. I felt disappointed by the ending we got here for the longest time because it didn't feel very conclusive at all, because as stated, I thought this was going to be the final fight between these two. That, and now counting this movie, they've tried the burning Michael Myers bit 3 times. The only difference between those is that in some shots you can see Michael is no longer standing where he was, and at the end of the credits you can still hear him breathing. Now, I'm not sure if the filmmakers did have Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends planned this whole time, but it would have been still interesting to see how this movie was going to play out with the other ending if this was going to be the final Halloween movie. I actually talked to some friends of mine recently about this other ending, and one of the original drafts saying that Laurie was going to die. Yeah, that actually was going to happen. And one of them said, if she was going to die attempting or actually killing Michael, they said it would most definitely be for Halloween Ends, and that would have to be in an epic way of going out. So, I guess we'll have to wait and see when that one comes out next year if it doesn't get pushed back due to the pandemic, and of course, fucking morons. But for now, let's focus on Halloween Kills. But before we do that, let's focus on Halloween 2018, and if you haven't already guessed it by now, I love this movie. To me, this is the second best film in the series. You could definitely tell that this was a Halloween film made by people who love and care about the movies. They even went ahead and added callbacks to the past entries. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. They actually threw in a shit ton of Easter eggs / references from the past 40 years of this series. The iconic pumpkin was brought back for the opening credits, and no CGI was used. They actually filmed the pumpkin in 60-second intervals for an entire week and simply reversed the footage for this really cool time lapse. It's as if this new movie breathed new life into the series. Some references I've already mentioned in this video, like Allison sitting in class, which is almost a one-for-one like her grandmother. Even the teacher is voiced by Linda's actress from the original, PJ Souls.
Now let's open our books to Frankel's interpretation.
The one continuous take, mental patients on the loose. Okay, seriously, what happened to those guys? References to both Mr. and Mrs. Elrod from the 1981 sequel.
Happy Halloween, Mr. Elrod.
The gas station bathroom from H2O in the first Rob Zombie movie. Michael getting run over like Ben Tramer, which also happened to him in Halloween 4.
When your car hits a guy and his body goes fly, that's a dead guy.
Ooh, spooky ghost! The dead cops like in part 5, the 3rd annual Myers barbecue, and a dollhouse in Karen's old bedroom looks like Michael's childhood home from the original movie. Wait a minute. The Myers house never had a 5th window. 0 out of 10, worst film in the Halloween series. I can't believe I'm talking about this still. Alright, but I'm continuing to talk about it out of spite. But of course, there's one more reference I forgot to mention, that being the 3 silver shamrock masks from Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. See, people who are hating on this movie? Silver Shamrock is now in the same universe as Michael Myers! We even had the actress who played Annie from the original film as a mother. The voice on the intercom was Jamie Lee Curtis in an uncredited cameo.
It's 6 o'clock. It's 6 o'clock. All residents of Santa Mira, please clear the street.
One of the androids was Dick Warlock, who played Michael in the 81 version of Halloween 2. And who was that on the TV in the bar? Boom! Michael Myers. So why, when this came out, y'all were acting like a bunch of whiny bitches? I should probably get around to talking about this one day. It's also very nice and welcoming to have a movie in the Halloween series that's just back to basics. Gone is the Thorn Cult, White Horses, and the Ghost of Dead Moms. It's just refreshing to have a Michael Myers who's not only scary again, but is one-for-one true to the original. He's again a mysterious force in nature who escapes from a mental institution and kills for no rhyme or reason. I was even surprised with how they kept in the little details on Michael from the original, like the hole in his mask when Laurie stabbed him in the neck with a knitting needle, and that he's blind in one eye now because she also stabbed him with a wire hanger. Of course, it's also nice to see Jamie Lee Curtis return as Laurie Strode, and as I said way back in the video, this is the most accurate portrayal of the character we've gotten in a long time. She has trauma of the night from 40 years ago, but is ready for Michael if he ever returned. It was also surprising to find out that the movie puts in issues that were very present in the time that it was made. And the biggest one is the Me Too movement, with Laurie standing up to an abuser after many years of trauma that was left on her. I think it goes without saying that I absolutely recommend this movie if you've already seen the original. Yeah, that probably goes out to the 2 people who haven't, but hey, it seems fitting to check out both movies during this month given that the sequel is coming out. Speaking of, it looks like I'm ready to see Halloween Kills now, so that's where I'm gonna end things here. Thank you all for being incredibly patient for me for whenever new videos come out while I try to survive everything that's going on in the world right now. And as you can see by the length of this video, I had a lot to talk about. I love Halloween 2018. I love the Halloween franchise despite all the bad sequels that we've gotten in the past 15 years or so. So if I was going to talk about Halloween 2018, I wanted to do it right. I wanted to give it the justice it deserves. With how much I love this movie, I wanted to do that right. And I apologize if I'm mostly stuttering. That's what you can do when you're going off script and improvising a lot. So I guess I have nothing left to say, but see you next time. Happy Halloween. But most importantly, stay safe.
Make
Mr. Sandman.